Hello and welcome to another episode of Champagne Football. The beer might be running out and football may have come to a halt, but that doesn't mean the quality of this podcast will diminish in any way. I'm your host, Hal Fish, and here with me, as ever, is Becky Thompson. How you doing, Becky?
I'm doing all right, Hal, trying to, keep going, but as you said, the wine is running very low in this house as well, so we're managing where we can.
In a very special episode with a new guest on this week. Who have we got?
Yeah, we're super excited to be joined by Kieran Theivam from The Athletic today. He's the women's football writer for The Athletic and has been covering the women's game for over a decade now, covered the Women's World Cup for FIFA as well, so he's got a wealth of knowledge, and it's super awesome to have him on today.
Yeah, and before we speak to him, where he'll run through his favourite ever Women's Super League team, have you done anything this week, Becky?
No. I made a trick shot video with my sister and it took us 4 hours. And 2 of those hours were me editing it because I don't have anything better to do.
Yeah, the most productive I've been is just sitting in the garden reading a book. Amy Lawrence's 89, which is a nice read for
weather's nice too.
Yeah,
that's the bright side.
Yeah, the weather is probably the only good thing right now.
A bright side. Okay, I'm not funny.
Sorry, I was speaking over your pun.
I just had to point out it wasn't a very good pun because clearly I had to point out it was a pun. But anyways, yeah, we're super excited to be joined by Kieran on this podcast and excited to have our first official guest, actually, really. First official guest?
All the other people we've had have been worthless, I would describe them as.
Yeah, really kind of subpar. Well, we'll have to work on that. Tell them to up their game.
Disappointments.
All right, so today we are super lucky to be joined by Kieran Theivam, the women's football writer from The Athletic. He is going to be talking to us today about his all-time WSL starting 11. So the best players, in his opinion, from the WSL since its inception. And then we're going to get a chance to talk to him about a little bit about what's going on with the league right now as well. So Kieran, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing right now?
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. No, doing okay. I'm sure similar position to you guys of starting to get a little bit of cabin fever from the position that we find ourselves in at the moment. But yeah, keeping busy. Difficult an environment at the moment for women, for football writers in general, because obviously there's no football for us to report on. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not important at all. Safety and people's well-being is the most important thing. So we're looking forward to it coming back, but only when it's safe to do so.
I was wondering, Kieran, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy in these football times?
Yeah, do you know what? We carry on as normal as we can. I can't speak for other media outlets. I think newspapers, understandably, they do match previews, they do match reports as well. So obviously they're missing out on that. We don't do that. So for us, we have a quota of articles that we need to try and produce every week, and that hasn't changed. We still try and produce the same number of pieces every week. It's just having to be a little bit creative, and I guess where we're fortunate is because we're a website and we don't produce a newspaper every day. We can go a little bit historical. So at the moment we've got a reboot of the 98-99 season that's running on our website. So some of our writers are contributing to that. We can, look at historical things and produce pieces that look back on certain events. So, we try and keep as busy as we can with, with the limitations that we have. But for me, certainly, I would say my workload is no less busy than it was before. The only difference is that I can't get to matches and I'm not going to things like roundtables with managers and press conferences.
Yeah, wow. How much are you missing the live experience then, or are you enjoying being able to get a little bit of a break now?
But do you know what? I think if you'd asked me a few months ago, I probably would have said I was enjoying the break. But no, I miss it. I miss it terribly. I think even, not just am I a writer, but I'm a fan as well. I've been following football for 30 years, giving my age away a little bit, but I've followed it for a long time and take the journalism side out of it. I miss going to the games. One of the big things about football is the social side of it, isn't it? It's seeing your mates, it's going for a beer, it's having a bite to eat. Can't even do that at the moment. So Yeah, I miss it terribly. But as I said in the intro, for me, it should not return until it's absolutely safe to do so. And sure, we'll touch on it later. I'm not even sure if it will return with fans in the stadiums initially. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Mm.
Well, since we're all missing football a lot, now seems as good a time as ever to dive into talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get you to run through your team. We'll start with the goalkeeper and work our way up to the forwards. And we'll throw in some comments if we've got some thoughts. We've both done our research as well and come up with our own starting 11s and some ideas. So
Okay, I've got to do mine first, right? And then you can
yeah. So,
you're going to use stats and research to back yours up, and I've got to go for a really hazy memory.
I've got some opinions on mine as well, so we'll
Okay.
challenge you a little bit, but I'm also inclined to trust you on your
No. I mean, it's a game of opinions, football, isn't it? So I'm sure there are some that people will agree with and some that they won't. So my goalkeeper is Siobhan Chamberlain. Siobhan, in the early days of the WSL, especially when she was with Bristol Academy, was excellent. I think she was probably the best keeper in the league. Didn't get the attention that she probably deserved. She was up there with Emma Byrne of Arsenal, for me, as the best two goalkeepers in the division. Obviously played at Bristol, had a very brief spell at Arsenal, which didn't quite go according to plan. She played at Notts County on loan, Liverpool, and obviously she's now at Manchester United, obviously not playing because of just having had a baby. But yeah, Siobhan for me over the course of the WSL has probably just edged it over someone like Karen Bardsley, who's been very consistent for Manchester City. But I think, Carly Telford is another one I'd like to give a mention. I think she's been excellent when she's been given the opportunity, but at the moment she's at a club where she's not getting a lot of opportunity with Anne-Katrin Berger, the German goalkeeper, ahead of her at Chelsea. There's a lot. Emma Byrne at Arsenal was excellent, but Emma was coming towards the end of her career when the WSL started. But for me, I'd go Siobhan Chamberlain.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I did have Emma Byrne in my team.
Okay.
She's one of the first goalkeepers that I remember watching when I was growing up watching football, and when I kind of discovered the women's football scene in Europe as well. So she sticks out in my mind to me. But Chamberlain has been pretty consistent, so I can't really argue with it at the same time. Hal, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think, to be honest, I have to agree.
And that's that from Hal.
I'm interested, Kieran. Are you going to go for three at the back, or are you going to go to the traditional four?
I've gone 4. So most of the teams in the WSL over the time that it's been going, I would say, have traditionally gone with a back 4. So I've gone Lucy Bronze, Steph Horton, Gemma Bonner, and Demi Stokes. So Lucy Bronze, I think, is a no-brainer. Won trophies at both Liverpool and at Manchester City, has gone on to become one of the best players in the world. We saw her really develop over the course of the WSL. She came into the WSL at Everton. She's had some horrendous injuries, and you just wondered whether she would ever recover from that. But she's done that and more, gone on to be one of the best players in the world, as I said. And I think going forward, defensively, the best right back that we've seen over the course of WSL. Alex Scott runs her very, very close, obviously. But for me, Lucy just edges it. Steph Horton, I think, is a bit of a no-brainer. I think Steph is winding down a little bit at the moment. I don't think she's quite at the level that maybe she has been in the past. But I think you can forgive her for that. She's a little bit older now. There's stuff going on in her personal life that I don't think any of us could ever really appreciate how difficult that is. But I think also what I remember about Steph is that she hasn't always been a centre-back. When she was at Arsenal before Manchester City, she was playing, I saw her right back, I saw her in holding midfield, and it was holding midfield where I thought Steph would spend her career. I thought she was brilliant there because of her array of passing, her ability to break up play. I would love to have seen her had a career as a holding midfielder, but when she joined Manchester City, they moved her to a centre-back position, and she's never moved away from there since. But I think she's been consistent throughout the whole of the WSL, and I think that's why I have to put her in there. Gemma Bonner will be the one that probably surprises a few people, but I don't think you can look past a player who, in her early 20s, captained the Liverpool side to back-to-back WSL titles in 2013 and 2014. ended the dominance of Arsenal. Arsenal won the first two WSL titles in 2011 and 2012, and Gemma captained the Liverpool side that dethroned them. If you speak to someone like Matt Beard, who's obviously now the head coach at West Ham, but was responsible for taking Gemma to Liverpool. I think he also had her at Chelsea as well, which is where she was before she went up north. He speaks incredibly highly of her. She can be a little bit inconsistent, I won't deny that, but I think when you've played in the league for as long as she has, when you've won back-to-back titles as a captain at such a young age, I think you are worthy of being mentioned, certainly in a team of the WSL. And then at left back, Demi Stokes. I just think Demi's the most consistent left back that we've had in the WSL. I think it's probably the position where I struggled most to try and pick. Alex Greenwood was very good when she was at Liverpool and Everton, and Notts County as well. Claire Rafferty, if Claire hadn't suffered the injuries that she did, I think she has to be in the conversation. Rachel Unit was very good as well, but again, suffered quite badly with some injuries. I think Demi is the one that's kind of been consistent and managed to kind of maintain that level. I think Katie McCabe's done very well there at Arsenal since she was moved there, but still relatively new to that position. But I think Demi has to go in there for me.
So my only question is, did you consider giving a look into someone like Casey Stoney in the defensive line?
I did. Yeah, I did. Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of Casey. Know Casey on a personal level very well as well, so it hurts to leave her out. I could have quite happily put her in there. She made I had to do for The Athletic, I had to do an England Lionesses team of the decade, and Casey got in there. I just feel that at WSL level, she was by no means a bad player. She was class. But she just missed out for me. She probably would have been the next one on my list.
Cool. And moving on to the midfield then, who's up next?
So midfield, I have a 4 as well, but I'm doing it as a diamond because I don't have any width.
Okay.
So I've got Farrah Williams, Jill Scott, Ji So Yun, and Jordan Nobbs. So Farrah, I think I wrote a piece on Farrah last week, and I spoke to Matt Beard about her, and he described her as a genius. He said she can ping a ball like Beckham with both her left and right foot, and it's the biggest compliment that you can give to a player, because David Beckham's range of passing and his ability to, from dead ball situations was probably second to none. Yeah. So I just think Farrah's been so consistent over the course of the competition. Has slowed down a little bit international level. Obviously, she is now England's record cap holder with 171 or 72, something like that. But she still pops up for Reading with goals from 25, 30 yards. She's still got that range of passing. She's still got a very, very good football brain. So Farrah gets in there for me. Jill Scott is just misconsistent. She is your 7 out of 10 player or more every single game. It's very rare that Jill has a bad game, whether it was for Everton or moving on to Man City in 2014. I just think that she is a reliable. Reliable makes it sound like she's got nothing extravagant about her, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having a reliable player. I think Jill is box to box. She's super fit. She used to run cross country when she was younger, so she will outrun you in the 89th, 90th minute when you're exhausted. She's still going. But she pops up with goals as well. And she's good in the tackle because she's obviously got those long legs. So Jill Scott gets in there for me. Jordan Nobbs, it was a toss-up between Jordan and Kim Little. And the only reason
I was going to say, as an Arsenal fan, I was wondering where Kim Little was.
The only reason I've gone Jordan over Kim is because Kim had a few years away in America. That for me is the only reason that Kim doesn't get in the team. It's really difficult because obviously the argument could then be, well, Lucy Bronze hasn't been in the league for the last few years. I've seen Jordan develop and grow in this league from a teenager into one of the best midfielders, I think, in the world. I don't just think in England. Unbelievable energy. I interviewed Heather O'Reilly when she was over here with Arsenal, And Heather said to me, I thought players in the US were fit. And then I met Jordan Nobbs. She's got this unbelievable ability to just keep on going, a bit like Jill Scott. But, you know, she can play in the 8, she can play in the 10. She's played deeper if she has had to in the 6 or the 4, however people sort of describe it. So Jordan gets in there purely on the basis that she's been in the league the whole time. But I love Kim. Kim in the NWSL in those few years that she had there was unreal. The people in America didn't know who Kim Little was, and they certainly did by the time that she left. So she just misses out for me. And then Ji So Yun, I think, has probably, if I'm honest, I think Ji So Yun has been the best overseas signing for the WSL. Unbelievable ability, very technical, can play deep, can start moves, can play higher up the field, can unlock defences with her passing ability, can fire shots in from distance, can take set pieces, just glides around the pitch, just very, very easy on the eye as a football fan and as a football purist, if that's what you are. So I think it's very difficult to leave out someone like G. Just unbelievable talent. You know, there are other players that I would love to have put in midfield. Maren Mjelde at Chelsea, I think, is phenomenal. You know, Kim, another one that we've mentioned. Very difficult. Kira Walsh at Manchester City, I'm a big fan of. Leah Williamson, I think Kira and Leah potentially break into this WSL team at some point in the future.
Yeah.
So that's my 4 midfielders in a diamond because there's not much width in those 4.
Yeah, I mean, players like Ji So Yun have really made, I think, like the level of Chelsea increase as well over the last few years. So a no-brainer on that one. I like how you described Jill Scott because I didn't look to her immediately, but I think you're right that she gets overlooked sometimes just because she doesn't do the most flashy plays, but she is the most consistent player probably on the pitch. So yeah, I think pretty consistent, pretty good midfield core there. Just maybe missing Kim Little for me, but I can kind of get over that, I think.
I'm glad I couldn't get her in. I thought about a 5-player midfield, and I thought there's too many strikers that you need to leave out otherwise.
Tough team to put together, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. You gave me the impossible task. And you know what? I could probably do a podcast next week and do this, and it would be a different team. That's kind of how it works. You forget sometimes about players, and you think, "Oh crap, I should have put them in." And then my 2 forwards are Nikita Paris, all-time record goal scorer in the WSL. I interviewed Nikita when she was at Everton very early on in the WSL era, and she was, you know, very very raw, I think is probably the word I would use. You could see there was potential there, but there was still a long way to go. And I think when you look at what she was able to do for Man City, largely from wide areas, you know, to become the record goal scorer in the division, to overtake a player like I think Eni Aluko was the record goal scorer before then, and Eni deserves a mention as well because she was brilliant for the clubs that she represented, Chelsea and Birmingham as well. So, you know, but for me, Nikita, the way she developed and the fact that she was able to get a move to the best team in the world in Lyon last year, I think for me, you know, you have to put her in. And then up front with her, this was really difficult. And it kind of goes against everything that I've said about longevity in the league, but I have to go Vivianne Miedema. Viv is quite possibly the best striker that we've seen in the league in the whole time that we've had it. And, you know, if we were doing this team 5 years ago, I'd probably be looking at someone like Ellen White. I'd be looking at Kelly Smith. Kelly's a good friend of mine, and it pains me to leave her out of this, but I've gone for professional over friendship. But Viv has everything. Left foot, right foot, drop deep into the 10, play on the shoulder of a defender and run in behind. Runs the channels when she needs to. Very unselfish. You know, the Bristol City game where Arsenal won 11-1 earlier in the season was an indication of what she's capable of. She's scored 6 and assisted 4, and she was more happy with the 4 assists than the 6 goals that she scored. So, you know, Sam Kerr, if she's in the league a little bit longer and can really make an impact for Chelsea. Again, is someone who could probably get into this team in a couple of years.
What have you thought about Sam Kerr's start? Early days yet, but
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I know a few people have said about Sam Kerr, but it's just been so stop-start. How that's the
yeah,
problem. She came in December. She had a few games. Then she had to go away for Asia Olympic qualifiers. Then she came back, and then she had to go away again. And then we had this lockdown. So
yeah,
she's not had any time to really adjust to the WSL. And what she also hasn't had time to adjust to is a winter league. The reality is that over the last however many years, Sam has only really ever played kind of spring, summer. She plays in America between April and September, October, when it's still warm. Then she goes to Australia and she goes and plays in the W League during the Australian summer. So if you actually asked Sam the last time that she played a winter season, admittedly when she played in New Jersey and when she played in Buffalo with Western New York Flash, there will have been games where it was freezing cold, heavy rain and stuff like that. But to play games occasionally in that weather as opposed to living it every day like you do here in England. I mean, she tweeted out the other day, like, it's 21 degrees and I'm in shorts and it's like 21 degrees in Australia. They're all wearing hoodies. It doesn't register. But over here, like 21 degrees is really warm. So she's not had any time to adjust. She's not had any time to adjust to the play, to the culture, to the environment, to the weather. Sounds like an excuse, but it is something that you have to adjust to. So give her time is probably the advice that I would give to any fan that's not sure about her, because I've seen a lot of Sam and she's world class, and world class players don't fall away, or they certainly shouldn't. So I think given time, she'll adjust, no problem.
And going back to Miedema, you obviously got to sit down with her with the Athletic. How was that as an experience?
Yeah, incredible. I think to get that insight from a player at that level and just sort of sit down with them and pick their brain, and that's exactly what it was. It was getting into her head. It was sitting down, showing her 5 goals that myself and my editors had picked out, as being quite different to each other. And then essentially just asking her about them and letting her kind of almost flow, don't interrupt her, just let her talk, play the goal through, let her break it down, pause it when it needs to be paused, talk about body shape and talk about positioning and everything, like just getting really nerdy, I think is the way that we looked at it. And that's what, it's kind of what we want in the Athletic, it's all about detail. So to be able to do that and learn about kind of getting into the mind of a striker, what are you thinking when the ball is bouncing in front of you? How, she was saying it like, if I hit it too early, it's going to go over the bar. If I hit it too late, it's going to go into the keeper's hands, or whatever it might be. It was really interesting to kind of, get that insight from a player who clearly is very, very good at what she does.
I think it does show how world class she is to be able to break down her every movement on the pitch like that as well. I can't argue with either of your strikers for this all-time 11. I would have potentially put Ellen White, but it's a really hard decision to make, and Miedema has been just phenomenal to watch as well.
Yeah, Ellen's had some injuries as well. Suffered an ACL 2014, I think it was, 2013, 2014. So again, very, very difficult, but Ellen's class, and Ellen will probably go on to break Kelly Smith's record as top England goal scorer in the next couple of years. So
looking forward now to what's going on currently in the world with the COVID-19 situation and the league being shut down. You already touched on this at the start about it being unlikely it will restart, at least with any fans. What do you think is the most likely outcome to happen, or what would you like to see happen?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think the most important thing, as I said at the start, is that it doesn't return until it's safe to do so. I think there's another problem that we have in that if we rush it back too much, even if you have an empty stadium, you still need an ambulance there. You still need paramedics. You still need doctors. You still need the relevant people if they're like you would on a normal match day in case there's injuries or someone falls ill or something like that. So I think for me, it can't return until we're in a position where we can afford to have those people away from their normal route, their normal jobs or whatever it might be. At the moment, every ounce of resource that we have in the NHS and within our system needs to be dedicated to the right areas. And is football the right area at the moment? No, it's not. So for me, the only time we make a call for it to come back is when we can afford to let those people away from their jobs and to be at football matches. As for letting large numbers of people into stadiums, I think that's a completely different kettle of fish. I think that's a completely different question. I don't feel comfortable necessarily with having 60,000 people in a stadium immediately after, everything is declared safe. I think you have to leave it. I don't know how long. I'm not an expert, so I don't want to start giving timelines, but I would be amazed if we see fans in a stadium before the summer. I would be, we're talking about potentially being locked down until, what did I see today, like end of May, maybe going into June. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see fans in a stadium until, I wouldn't even like to guess, because I genuinely don't know. We could be looking August, September for all I know. But obviously the clubs, and for reasons that, are, in terms of trying to complete the league, in terms of it being fair, in terms of, Liverpool are 25 points clear in the men's game. Is it right that they should have that stripped away from them? Personally, I don't think they should. I know there are Man United fans and other fans of clubs that probably would like to see it. But for me, you finish the season, but you only do it, number one, when it's safe to do so, and number two, in the circumstances that is right for fans, for the clubs, for the players, and for everyone involved.
And looking at solutions for when everything does get going again, the Women's Super League, obviously it transitioned from a summer league into a winter league back in, I think it was 2016.
Yeah.
And to bridge that gap, they had the spring series. Is it the spring series? And
They did. Yeah.
they just played each other once, I think. Do you think they could try and employ something similar to sort of get things going again?
Yeah, totally. I don't see why not. To be honest, that's been at the back of my mind for a little while. Of, we did it once before, why don't we just do it again? For me, the 2019-2020 season is the one that needs to be completed. And if that goes into the autumn or even the end of the year, then so be it. For me, it's 2020, 2021 that is the season that should probably suffer.
Yeah.
Because there have been no fixtures that have been played. Why scrap a season with a however long left of it and start a completely new one when the previous one wasn't finished? Let's just get this one finished, however long it takes, and then think about what we're going to do with a season that hasn't even started. So for me, a spring series would be that thing that could bridge the gap, and why not have something like that in the men's game as well? I don't think it would go down. I don't think it would get agreed, if I'm honest with you. I don't thankfully cover the men's game, so I don't have to talk about that or think about it. But for the women's game, why not a spring series? Why not something where you have a half season, which is, starts in January and runs until May? And, the team that finishes in top two or the top three, wherever it might be, are the teams that qualify for the Champions League. It's one season out of the however many hundreds that people will get in the future. I don't think we need to think too much about what the longer term effect is. I think we just need to control what's happening now. So get this season finished, even if it goes into September, October, November, whatever, and then think about what we're going to do for the next season. It will be a shorter season, but it's one season to worry about, and then things can go back to normal from 2021, 2022.
Yeah, so from a personal standpoint, as a Watford fan, of course, if the season in the men's league did get called as it is right now, how would you feel? I mean, they're one place out of relegation. Would that be a good thing for you from a personal standpoint?
Well, I'd be delighted because it means we stay up. But the problem that we've got is that Aston Villa, who are below us, have got a game in hand. So the suggestion is that if they were going to finish the season, then Aston Villa would need to play that game in hand against Sheffield United so that all the teams finish on, I think it's 29 games. So I'm not going to lie to you. If it was ended now, then from a Watford perspective, I'm delighted because we looked absolutely doomed in the autumn with, very few points until Nigel Pearson came in. But again, I can't say that it's fair to try and finish the season for Liverpool to win the league and then say we don't end it so that Watford, or we do end it so that Watford can stay up. My view is that we should finish the season. And if that means Watford getting relegated because the other teams were better, then so be it. I want it to be just a 38-game season. I want Watford to stay up by default because the season got ended. We were terrible at the start of the season. If you'd asked me, I would have said we were doomed and we deserved to go down, and we did. But we picked up some points. We obviously won some important matches, and we've given ourselves a chance. But I would feel uncomfortable if we stayed up with Aston Villa having this game in hand.
And that would be so interesting if Villa then did play that one last game and that was the only game left. It would be an amazing sort of cup final moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two. I think Villa have got to play Sheffield United, and I think off the top of my head, the other one is Man City and West Ham. So I don't think there's anything riding on the Man City West Ham game.
No.
But if Villa beat Sheffield United, Watford would be relegated. And if Sheffield United beat Villa, I think they'd qualify for the Champions League based on the fact that Man City are banned.
Yeah, I think
so
you're
right. There's a lot riding on that game. So I think Villa and Sheffield United would like to play that game.
It would be quite a spectacle for everyone. Be the main kind of show on TV and everything right now when we come back from this.
Imagine if it was behind closed doors as well. I mean, no fans going to see that game.
Well, that's all the questions I had. Hal, do you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, that's cleared up all my thoughts, and
I didn't get your team. I didn't get your team I didn't get your
my team
WSL team.
Nearly identical to yours. The only differences I had in my team was I had Casey Stoney. I had Faye White in the back as well, even though she only played one season in the WSL.
Okay.
Because, I mean, growing up, again, a lot of these were impacted based on what I watched when I was younger, and I just remember her mostly for England, to be fair. Yeah. And then I had Kim Little in the midfield, and everything else was identical. I actually had Kim Little instead of Jill Scott, though. Okay. Because I wasn't quite sure about her, but I think you're right. I may have overlooked her based on the fact that.
It's opinions, isn't it? I mean, Kim is unbelievable. I mean, it pains me to leave her out. Like, if you asked me in terms of like best players in the world, she's up there for sure. But those few years in the NWSL are what kind of kicked it for me. Yeah,
and then when I look at my forwards, I have Nikita Paris, Ellen White, and Miedema written down, but that's not in a starting 11. That's 12. So basically, I hadn't come to a decision between the three of them yet.
Okay, so I had to come up with an 11, but you're allowed to come up with more players.
Yeah, I would.
This is our podcast.
Okay, fair enough. Your podcast.
We make the rules.
I can make a hard decision and say Miedema rather than Ellen White, but I'm just a big fan of all of them. I really am.
They are brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Kieran, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I hope things do return to normal soon, and that we can get back into football stadiums and watching soon.
Likewise, no problem, guys. Anytime.
Oh yeah, thanks very much.
Wow. Well, it has been a really special episode of Champagne Football. Thank you so much to Kieran Theivam again for coming on our podcast today. For myself and Hal, it's been an absolute pleasure.